for tuning in. This is Radio Imanzi, 105.1 FM, broadcasting from Kigali. Here are the news in English, brought to you by Alvin Umngari. The headlines. President Paul Kagame addresses delegate during the swearing-in for newly appointed ministers of health in Kigali. Rwanda's Minister of Gender advocates for holistic approach to tackle sexual violence. Rwanda will host the 2023 Global Summit of the World Travel and Tourism Council in Kigali. Kenyan President William Ruto officially launched his resourceful fund on Wednesday, the flagship measures of his campaign. Belarus's president believes Moscow will assassinate him. We'll be back with news in detail. Welcome back. President Paul Kagame has spoken out on the ongoing conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, saying that Rwanda's desire for peace should not be questioned because a peaceful neighbor spells peace for Rwanda. The president was speaking at the swearing-in ceremony of new Minister of Health, Dr. Seban Sanzimana, and the Minister of State in the same ministry, Dr. Yvan Butera, a ceremony that took place at the parliament. He said Rwanda does not have any desire for war because it has tested it and knows how bad and costly it is, and therefore should not be the one paying for war. He continued saying this problem can easily be resolved in one country, was not headed for the elections and was not trying to create an emergency for the next elections to be postponed. If this is the case, I would rather someone uses other excuses. President Paul Kagame was speaking about the conflict that has been ongoing in eastern part of DR Congo, mainly between the rebel group M23 and the government forces, which has seen a series of efforts to bring to an end of this problem falter. The Congolese has accused Rwanda of backing the rebel group, accusations that Rwanda has denied. Reports indicate that in combating M23, the Congolese forces are fighting alongside FDLR, a militia group formed by Rwandans who committed the genocide against the Tutsis in 1994. The Congolese have not denied this claim, while the UN has also affirmed this. His Excellency said, "We're not going to engage in skirmishes that could have been avoided. We're not going to engage in encroaching on anyone's territory integrity, but we so much demand that this happens in our cases as well." Rwanda's women and girls suffered sexual violence as crimes of genocide during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Perpetrators of the genocide employed sexual violence against women and girls as brutally effective tool to humiliate and subjugate the victims. Since then, Rwanda has said never again. Prevention and accountability are in policy, in law, and in practice in Rwanda. After the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, Rwanda started to advocate for sexual violence to be a crime of genocide and for the law to punish the perpetrators. The government of Rwanda is committed to an inclusive society free from discrimination and will continue to bolster our gender-sensitive laws and strategies. Rwanda is committed to ensure women's representation in peace building. Accountability for sexual violence is a key part for the training of Rwandan troops who are currently serving in bilateral and United Nations peacekeeping missions. Jeanette Bayisenge, Rwanda's Minister of Gender and Family Promotion, delivered a speech at the Prevention of Sexual Violence in Conflict Conference in the United Kingdom.
Touch on conflict-related sexual violence in Eastern DRC. It's not helpful nor honest to point fingers at one single country as responsible for the very complex security challenges faced in that area, where more than 130 armed groups operate, some of them for more than 25 years. While we condemn in the strongest possible terms the sexual violence perpetrated by these various armed groups, as well as other actors, it is important that we do not use the suffering of the victims for political gains. The best way to tackle this problem is by ensuring that all the parties and partners support ongoing regional mechanisms and initiatives to bring back peace and stability in Eastern DRC. I thank you for your kind attention.
Rwanda is also committed to protecting and standing with victims of GBV, preventing stigma and enabling more access to meaningful and timely services for survivors through Isange one-stop centers that has been established across the country. Rwanda will host the 2023 Global Summit of the World Travel and Tourism Council, yet another major event to grace the country's hospitality sector. The decision was announced on Tuesday, November 29th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where the World Travel and Tourism Council 22nd Summit is taking place. The World Travel and Tourism Council is a leading global non-profit organization whose mission is to raise awareness of the full economic and social impact and potential of the travel and tourism industry. The summit is believed to be the world's most influential travel and tourism event, and it brings together industry leaders, key government representatives, among others, and to discuss the current trends and the future of the travel and tourism sector. Imanzi, the CEO of Rwanda Development Board, reacted to the decision saying, "We look forward to giving all a wonderful and a wonderful welcome." Tourism has been at the heart of Rwanda's development effort, with the sector being the country's leading source of foreign exchange revenues. RDB, the industry regulator, estimates the country will generate up to approximately 372 billion Rwandan francs in revenue for tourism in 2022. The Inspector General of Police, IGP Dan Munyuza, on Tuesday, November 29th, presided over the pass-out of 247 police officers and prison wardens who completed a 4-month non-commissioned officers course at the Police Training School PTS Gishari in Rwamagana district. The police chief embarked on what awaits them in policing and security matters. Inspector General of Police Dan Munyuza said police constables and non-commissioned officers constitute the biggest number of police officers and its policing responsibilities, and that adds value to the face of Rwanda National Police Services. When you serve the people exceptionally with discipline, that is the pride and image expected of you. The acquired knowledge and skills will be defined by the impact they will bring in their units. He continued saying, have a positive attitude and thinking, do your work well, use the acquired skills to add value to your policing duties, work professionally with a patriotic spirit, and be practical in your respect for superiors. The non-commissioned officer course is designed to further enhance the abilities of the officers in public order management, duties at the police station, physical fitness, drills and duties, map reading, fieldcraft tactics, and police ethics. In a bid to address the challenges in the area of corrections, particularly as it relates to community safety and economic development, Rwanda and Zambia's correctional services have agreed to share best practices and enhance their cooperation. Zambia Correctional Services Commissioner General Frederick Chilukutu, who is leading a visiting delegation to Rwanda for 6 days, observed that as both institutions mull strengthening bilateral relations. According to Chilukutu, who was received by Rwandan counterpart Jovenel Marizamunda, strong bilateral relations dates back to 2020 when both services signed a deal on cooperation in the area of corrections as well as agreement on the transfer of convicted people. He said, "You may wish to know that as African Correctional Services, we have a joint resolve to rise above the challenge of overcrowding in prison facilities, which continue to constrain the capacity of our services to deliver on their mandates. In this regard, most correctional services in Africa continue to grapple with issues such as increase in incarceration and recidivism, inadequate sanitation and health, as well as provision of treatment programs, social reintegration and extension services to inmates. He continues saying the two nations can share best practices in the area of science and application of technology to ensure competitive or cost-effective management of correctional facilities. This will lessen pressure on the national treasuries and free resources for development and investment in other sectors. Mr. Chilukutu added that the Zambia Correctional Services is elated to learn that correctional facilities in Rwanda use electricity to generate from the biogas plants. We therefore request the Rwanda Correctional Service for technical support to assist us in assessing the feasibility to replicate the use of biogas technology in Zambia Correctional Service facilities. We'll be back with economic news.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The trading session recorded a turnover of 740,777,600 worth of bonds traded in 2 deals on the fixed income market and 8,061,500 Rwandan francs from 32,000 shares traded in 3 deals on the equities market. Equities counters closed as follows: Bralirwa at 166 Rwandan francs, Simirwa at 120 Rwandan francs, Entian Rwanda at 176 Rwandan francs, Bank of Kigali at 270 Rwandan francs, I&M Rwanda at 43 Rwandan francs, Equity at 444 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Uchumi Supermarket Limited at 104 Rwandan francs, and R&H Buffalo at 526 Rwandan francs. The exchange rate today: the United States dollar was buying 1,447 Rwandan francs and was selling 1,068 Rwandan francs. The British pound was buying 1,255 Rwandan francs and was selling 1,280 Rwandan francs. The euro was buying 1,084 Rwandan francs and was selling 1,106 Rwandan francs. The Kenyan shilling was buying 8.5 Rwandan francs and was selling 8.7 Rwandan francs. The Tanzanian shilling was buying 0.44 Rwandan francs and was selling 0.45 Rwandan francs. The Ugandan shilling was buying 0.28 Rwandan francs and was selling 0.28 Rwandan francs. The Burundian francs was buying 0.50 Rwandan francs and was selling 0.51 Rwandan francs. We'll be back shortly with international news.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
Kenyan President William Ruto officially launched his Resourceful Fund on Wednesday, the flagship measure of his campaign intended to give the poorest access to credit and revive the economy of this African country from below east. The head of state, who presented himself during the presidential campaign on August 9th as the herald of the resourceful hustlers of the common people, inaugurated the first part of his program, personal loans to a rate of 8% up to 50,000 Kenyan shillings, approximately 400 euros, accessible to any adult Kenyan with a money transfer application by mobile phone. The Kenyan president said with this program, the government is committed to creating opportunities for millions of people at the bottom of our economic pyramid to advance and realize their aspirations. More affordable credit will boost borrower confidence and inject significant amounts into productive activity across the economy. President Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus keeps an eye on everything around him because he believes that Russia wants to eliminate him, according to Ukrainian's leading newspaper, Kvi Post. Some Russia and Ukrainian Telegram channels reported on Monday, November 28th, that Lukashenko allegedly ordered that his cooks, guards and servants be replaced to protect himself. His children have been given extra security. He does not trust anyone after shocking reports claim that Belarusian Foreign Minister Vladimir Makeyi, who died on November 26th, was poisoned in a sting operation by Russian government. Makeyi was assassinated after Moscow discovered that he was covertly in contact with the West regarding the war in Ukraine and was attempting to prevent Vladimir Putin from further integrating Belarus into Russia.
To all these people, that we are so many, we have so much in terms of means, we claim to want to resolve the problem. It's actually simple to resolve, in my opinion, but it never gets resolved for decades.
We apologize about that. I was saying Dr. Michael Francis, a social scientist who specializes in politics and international relations, economic history, and socio-economic development, believes there is little evidence to support these claims. He said Belarus is very pro-Russia with strong links and connections. I will put this up as an attempt at anti-Belarusian and anti-Russian propaganda. I do not doubt that there are people and forces in Belarus that will be happy to see Alexander Lukashenko go, dead or otherwise, but would not think they are the current Russian government. Francis argued that any threat to Belarus's leadership would likely originate from within. He continued saying, I can see no reason for a split between the two countries or a reason for Russia to sabotage that relationship through the use of poison. If Russia were to destroy that relationship, it would destroy the relationship between allies and not further any military or political aim. The Austrian Interior Minister, Gerard Carney, has called for the European Union to establish asylum procedures in safe third countries, similar to models that Denmark and the United Kingdom have agreed to operate. A press release from Austria's Interior Minister, the request was made at the Extraordinary Justice and Home Affairs Council last week, where ministers discussed the Commission's new action plan for the countries in the Central Mediterranean and applauded the readiness to establish a similar action plan for other routes such as the Western Balkans route, which is dealing with increasing numbers of illegal border crossings. The asylum procedures that both the United Kingdom and Denmark are following are intended to deport refugees to the African country of Rwanda, where their claims for asylum would be processed, but this plan hasn't yet been implemented. The first deportation flight from the UK to the African country was scheduled to depart in June, but it was cancelled due to legal challenges, as the plan is to subject a court case to decide on its legality. So far, nobody has been sent from the UK to Rwanda. The minister also wants to facilitate the deportation of foreign national offenders, for which he proposed a trial project for rapid asylum procedures at the external European Union borders. The Austrian government has developed an essential role in border externalization in the Balkans, which obligates the European Union countries to prevent illegal border crossings by people from third countries that are seeking a better future in Europe. A Mozambican port has received its first ship in 3 years after activities that were stopped over jihadi attacks. Since last year, troops from Rwanda have been helping local forces battle the jihadi insurgency in Cabo Delgado province. The cargo vessel carrying fuel, vehicles and other equipment docked at the port of Mocimboa da Praia in the northern Cabo Delgado province, which has been racked by jihadist violence for years. The cargo belongs to companies supporting multinations who have been exploiting natural gas in the area. Cabo Delgado's governor, Imanzi Getwabo said during a ceremony to reopen the port that the resumption of operations was a result of the restoration of security and the confidence of the partners to continue to invest and develop the region. The General Director of French energy giant Total Energies, Maxime Rabiou, who was also present at the event, reaffirmed that this company would continue to support the government and the private sector in the rebuilding of the province. Total Energies last year suspended operation at a site exploring a major gas field in the province after Islamist militants attacked a nearby town. Its $20 billion gas liquefaction plant in Mozambique is the largest foreign investment in Africa. The verdict in Mozambique's massive hidden date corruption scandal has begun on Wednesday in Maputo with phantom fishing vessels, exorbitant foreign loans, and people close to the government. In orange jumpsuits, some of the 19 defendants in the case reappearing in the morning at the special court where the trial began last year. None of the country's courts were large enough to try one of the biggest corruption scandals in its history. A tent was set up in the high-security prison in the capital, Maputo. The reading of the decision is scheduled to last 5 days. In the dock are intelligence agents, people close to the government, and the son of former President Ndambi Gebuza, the eldest son of Armando Gebuza, who has been called to testify in court. They are all on trial for blackmail, forgery, embezzlement, and money laundering. The current head of state, Filipe Nyusi, was implicated in several testimonies. The case dates back to 2013 to 2014. Nyusi was then the Minister of Defense. Three Mozambican state-owned companies secretly borrowed $2 million from international banks to finance purchases of fishing vessels and military patrol boats. And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before I conclude, His Excellency Paul Kagame has spoken out on the ongoing conflicts in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. I want you to stay tuned and listen to what he has to say. On the other hand, thank you for staying with me. This was Alvin Umngari. Stay safe, stay warm, and have a wonderful night.